Just thought I'd take a moment to share something with you about stories and fairy tales. It's said that when we're young, when we're very young, and we get a bit hooked on a story that we like listening to over and over and over and over again, that story will be a reflection of our life in some way, and it will come to help us, guide us in our adult life and finding our way forward. And I was contemplating, and then I remembered the story that I used to love listening to as a child, and I loved reading. I had this little purple book, and I read it over and over and over and over again. And it was The Elves and the Shoemaker. And The Elves and the Shoemaker, for those who don't know, is a little story about a little old couple who lived on their own, and they didn't have much food or many clothes, and they were really struggling. They were finding it really tough. And one night they'd left all the things out, and they were so tired after work that they decided that they were just going to go to bed. So they did. So they went to bed. And then in the morning, where everything had been left out on the workbench, laid an amazing pair of shoes. And the shoemaker didn't understand where these shoes had come from. And he asked his wife, and she didn't know where they'd come from either. And they thought about it, but they were very grateful, and they decided to stick it in the window. Well, the shoes became the talk of the town, and before long people were coming from miles to see the shoes in the window, because they knew how amazingly made they were, how such fine detail, such quality. And they sold those shoes for a fair amount, and this enabled them to get more produce to make what they needed. So then they get the stuff, and they were making things, and then at night, and it happened again, there was another pair of shoes. And they put them in the window. Then they decided this time, they wondered if it happened again, they'd really like to see what it was, who it was who was making the shoes, and say thank you. So came to bed, everything got laid out, and instead of going to bed, they hid. And from their little hidey place, they saw two tiny little naked dancing men who came in and created the shoes, and off they set to work. They worked long and hard, and by morning there was an amazing pair of shoes. So the shoemaker and his wife decided to say thank you, and they made the little elves some tiny little clothes, because they thought that was a fair exchange. And they placed them out where they'd usually place all the stuff for the shoes. And then they took themselves back to the hidey hole at night, and they waited and they waited, and the little men came along and were so happy, and they put the clothes on. And I think, from what I can remember, I think at that point the elves and the shoemaker kind of made friends, and they decided to, strike up a deal, and somehow, they'd continue as they were, and they'd be able to live a life of abundance, so the elves would never have to fear for not having clothes and food anymore, and neither would the shoemaker and his wife. and everyone lived in abundance. And I think that's a beautiful story with a fantastic ending, even though that's the ending that I remember, you know. And I think that it has helped me think about life and think about fair exchange and think about friendships and really feel into the truth of things. And now I'm all grown up, apparently, you know. It helps me look at the world differently. It helps me see that there's more currency in the world than money. And there is money, and money is marvellous. It's a really wonderful thing. And it's energy. Money is energy. And it's so fantastic. And I love money. But I also love exchanging. And a fair exchange. You know, if you've got money and you've got lots of money that you'd like to share, and money needs to be circulated. It's an energy that needs to be circulated and it can grow. And that's beautiful. And for those who maybe don't have as much money, they can still circulate. And they can circulate money, but smaller amounts. And they can certainly circulate skills and food and resources, because, you know, the little elves didn't need money. They needed clothes. And just by coincidence or luck, it's the shoemaker and his wife had the material to make the clothes and the time to make the clothes in. So in life, what matters is that we come to a fair exchange with people where both people are getting something from the transaction. But not only do both people get something from the transaction, it's a fair something. It's a something that benefits both parties. And it can be time, it can be money, it can be food, it can be clothes. And in today's society, where there is an abundance of people who think they have less, it's so important to know that you have more and that you're capable of more and that everyone's got something to give. So I'd like to invite you all to feel into what you've got that you can circulate today, whether it's love, whether it's time. You know, go find yourself someone that you can help out. Maybe it's a neighbour who doesn't have much company. They would love your time. Maybe it's a charity. Maybe it's a dog shelter. There'll be many, many opportunities where you can go and help and share time with someone for the benefit of their greatest good. There'll be opportunities to share money to help support different causes that make your heart sing. There'll be different opportunities to share your abundance of food with people who have less or none. And there's many opportunities for recycling, upcycling and aiming for zero waste, where you can take things that will benefit others. Maybe they will like your old clothes or your old pans or your old sofa or your old carpet. You know, free cycle's awesome. And different share and swap type of sites. So really feel into how you really are abundant in your skills, in your time, and in your heart and in love, because love is never ending. So with that, I'm going to go and I'm going to go and share some love with these puppies. So have a wonderful day.